Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second online workshop of the Streets for People Challenge. I am A.V. Venugopal, a Senior Research Associate at the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. I'll be taking the next couple of minutes for a few housekeeping rules and introduction for the panelists and speakers, so do take the time to grab a cup of tea or coffee if you'd like to, because today is going to be yet another enriching learning experience. Building on the momentum of the Cycles for Change Challenge, it's heartening to see the enthusiasm that all the cities and participants have been showing for the Streets for People Challenge. It is my pleasure to welcome you all, senior officials, engineers, project management consultants, community partners, and all the different kinds of stakeholders who have shown interest for these two challenges and for tuning in, for those of you who have tuned in on YouTube as well, for this workshop. Today's session will focus on the rolling out of the city-led design competition. A quick look at the agenda for the day. Mr. Rahul Kapoor, Director, Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, will deliver the introductory address. Following that, we will have a panel discussion where we will hear the approaches from 3 different cities on how they identified pilot locations and other initiatives that they've taken for promoting walking in their cities. The 3 cities will be Aurangabad, Gurugram, and Jabalpur. On the panel today, we will have Mr. Raman Sharma, the Chief Engineer, Municipal Corporation, Gurugram, as well as Priyanka Suklan, Manager, Cities and Transport, WRI, speaking on behalf of the Gurugram city. We have Sneha Mohan, Assistant Project Manager from Aurangabad Smart City Development Corporation Limited, as well as Mr. Ashish Kumar Pathak, the Chief Executive Officer of Jabalpur Smart City Limited as well. The panel discussion will be followed by the presentation of the day, which will be done by Mr. Balan Nagendran, who is a research associate at ITDP India. The presentation will be on how to roll out the city-led design competitions and also on various initiatives of building momentum for pedestrianization projects and for building support. So before we jump in, a few housekeeping rules as always. Participants and panelists feel free to use the chat box below to interact with each other. In case you have a comment or a question to raise, if it's a comment, please choose the option of all panelists and everyone so that it reaches everyone to see it. For those of you who have a question to raise, type your question in the Q&A box and our team will shortlist the questions from this and raise it during the Q&A session. Finally, for those of you who like a particular question that's coming up, kindly upvote it using the like button. It will help bring the question to our attention quicker. Before I begin, I would like to share a quick glimpse of the progress done by the city so far since the first workshop of the challenge. So here's a very quick 2 slides that we put together on a nutshell that 22 cities have formed diverse teams already for the Streets for People Challenge with diverse representations from CSO groups, other interested stakeholders, and even women in their team. 24 cities have rolled out social media campaigns, the updates of which we have been seeing on the Telegram as well as the different social media platforms as well. Moving on to the next slide. The Open Streets campaign is something that we are nudged both through Cycles for Change Challenge as well as the Streets for People Challenge to jointly launch by the cities and to look at it in a recurring manner to spread across the city. And it's very heartening to see how these cities have already initiated these campaigns. And these are just a few snapshots from a few cities like Jabalpur and Bhopal who have been planning these open street campaigns in different parts of their cities in a very recurring and happy manner with a lot of response from the citizens. For the challenge itself, 11 plus cities have already identified at least 1 pilot location. And we'll be hearing from 3 cities on how they went about doing this in the panel discussion today. With that, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Rahul Kapoor, Director, Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, to deliver the introductory address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Venu. And a very good afternoon, everyone, to all the panelists who have joined today and all the attendees who are here for the first workshop on Streets for People. Now, Streets for People is basically a movement which is continuing from the Cycles for Change Challenge. And of course, It is a very interesting and very exciting challenge and has got tremendous response from all our cities and all the people who are associated with urban, who want to make the cities more livable, more pedestrian friendly, and improve the overall placemaking efforts in their cities. As has already been shared by Venu, the kind of work that has happened since the challenge was announced, of course, there was a gap. Cities were involved in the Cycles for Change challenge. And now here comes another challenge which has very strong correlation to the Cycles for Change. It is the overall movement that we are trying to bring in our urban way of thinking, the urban way of design. And basically, that's what the challenge is all about. So it's not really about competition. It's not really about basically trying to get a higher rank than any other city, but it is about bringing in that change in our way of working, the way of thinking, and the way of planning, designing, and implementation of projects in our cities. How it basically aligns with the aspiration of people, especially with regard to the change situation and scenarios and the opportunities that have been created by COVID-19, wherein there's a lot of focus on pedestrianization, on self-mobility, on non-motorized transport and cycling. So all these things actually are very strongly interrelated. And that is why it requires a lot of capacity, a lot of understanding of this subject. There have been efforts in the past, but I guess both the push and pull factor are something which are fairly unique at this point of time. So sometimes you may have a brilliant idea, but maybe the opportunities are not right. For this time, the opportunity or the situation that has come to us has created that opportunity, which makes it the right time for such kind of a challenge to become very successful. To start with, we have dedicated work towards streets of people that have been done by 22 cities that have formed core groups, the core teams for this challenge. And this also include women. And we have 15 cities that have held meetings to start working towards the challenge. And to gather support for this initiative from citizens, there has been a lot of media coverage that has happened in the cities, with 15 cities such as Vijayawada, Nashik, Ranchi having published various press notes and articles on this. And it has a catalyst kind of effect because people get very interested in this and they themselves come to us and ask us questions on what is the further progress, what is the way forward, how will this challenge basically pan out, and what kind of development we can expect from our cities. So we have cities like Agra, cities like Rajkot and Mysore, and in fact 24 cities like these that have created very strong online presence through their social media campaign teams. So it's definitely very heartening to say that the Open Street campaign will brings together people of all ages, and we are also asking our citizens to nominate streets. This is really a street for people, by the people, because it's not a top-down approach wherein we decide what street to develop, what place to make. It is basically the consideration that goes in, the consultative process, citizen engagement that is involved through these various efforts that the cities have undertaken. That is going to be a fruit. And that is why I am very happy with the way we are progressing with this challenge and the kind of different works, just to tell you a glimpse of that. So we have had traditional games, street music, drawing activities for children done by cities like Bhopal. We had Jabalpur organize multiple sessions across the city with recreational activities, and Newtown, Kolkata, Sagar, Saranpur have started planning, and we hope to see exciting events in the coming weeks. So by the time we have the next workshop on Streets for People, we'll have many more such case studies to discuss and showcase. So, of course, the pilot locations have been finalized by 11 of the cities, and 6 have identified both flagship projects and neighborhood projects. And today we have 3 such cities whom we'll be hearing from. We have Jabalpur, Aurangabad, and Gurugram, who have progressed very well on this front. And of course, they will share with us their views, their experience in this journey so far. And of course, the weekly updates are very important component of the challenge. So I urge all the cities who are participating today to regularly submit the updates, because it's more important to create capacity building material. And actually, all these inputs that you give, the weekly updates that you submit to us, we try to compile them and basically put it up for all other cities to learn from. So that's basically the lighthouse or demonstration effect of smart cities that we want to create. And the content has to come bottoms up. It has to come from all of you who are putting in so much of work, so much of effort. So let others learn from you and learn from your efforts and initiative in your state and outside your state as well. So I would request all of you to please keep regularly sharing your updates. And without taking much more time, I now request the moderator to take the session forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to join and to share such inspiring words. Before we start the panel discussion for today, to hear the experiences and learnings from 3 cities, I'd like to quickly take you all through a summary of what we went through in the last workshop, which was about how to identify the pilots. So in the workshop, we shared with you all what the challenge roadmap itself is. So broadly put, it's in 4 buckets with cross-cutting elements, where the first one is on identifying the pilot locations. The second one is on rolling out a city-led design competition, evaluating the competition and identifying the best entries for it, and then going to testing the pilot interventions and then scaling up and strategizing the interventions for long-term impact. And all of this through a community-led approach. So in the last session, which focused on identifying the pilot locations, we went on to further explain what the pilot should include. So a pilot includes both a flagship public space project as well as a livable neighborhood. So the cities are expected to identify under both these categories different typologies that they may find in their cities. So we had introduced 2 typologies under the flagship category of markets and retail areas, as well as transit hubs. And under the neighborhood typologies, 3 types like mixed income neighborhoods, resettlement colonies, as well as unplanned low income neighborhoods. And in case for your city, if you have a different typology that you'd come up which aligns with the characteristics of a flagship or a neighborhood typology, you are free to identify them. So once you identify locations of these different types within a typology, the design-led competition that the city will launch, you could use these sites to plug them into your competition and launch the competition for crowdsourcing innovative ideas for it. And the workshop today will look at how the rollout of the design competition can be. Without any further ado, let's move into the panel discussion. We have 3 cities who will be sharing their learnings so far on identifying the pilot locations, as well as other initiatives like Open Streets so far. I would like to invite Ms. Priyanka on behalf of Gurugram Municipal Corporation to make the first presentation.
Thank you, Venugopal. I will just share my screen. Let me know if you can screen.
Sure. We can see them. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think well introduced by Venu how the challenge is going, and so many cities are participating, and so is Gurugram, one of the cities who have been participating, and municipal corporation Gurugram has been leading this challenge in the city, along with the traffic police and with the Gurugram Metropolitan Development Authority. So all 3 important organizations will be working together. Okay, so just start with the locations if we go. We kind of started looking at, what will be the flagship project. And if you see that the flagship project can be a market area, or it has to be an important location for the city. So we had this oldest planned market in the city, which is called Sadar Bazaar, and there are many other cities around the country, I'm sure, must be having this kind of, the straight network and kind of ended with a religious building on either side, and there is a residential or a big tomb or big monument on the other side. So this is the kind of pattern which we usually see in Sadar Bazaar, and so is in the Gurugram. But over the time and the past development in last over the 2 decades in Gurugram, people have forgotten about this old heritage of the city as well, and that is something we thought that it will be good to highlight through this project, and that is why Sadar Bazaar Street was an important thing which city in fact wanted to take it from a year or so, and that is why they also did a successful pedestrianization kind of trial last year when we organized a parklet kind of thing, and then there was a Rahagiri also organized, and we practically closed enclose this complete space for about 3-4 hours. So based on that, because that got really positive response from the people, we thought this is the project we should take up under this challenge, and that is why it perfectly fits in the this flagship project. And also because it's a very interesting street which is surrounded by this loose grid pattern around it from the medieval times, and that is why it also gives scope to look into the network expansion of such projects around it. So this is the main idea why we chose this as a project. So this is Sadar Bazaar Market Street. If you can see, it's around 600 meter in length, and the stretch is basically one side. It starts from the head post office, where originally used to be a big residing space or something like that, and then on the northern side it ends at the masjid, which is currently called Sona Chowk as well. So both sides there is old railway road and the new railway road, which basically encloses the street. The width varies from 9 meter to 13 meter, which is again gives little bit flexibility to chalk out various multi-utility zones in a street. And the commercial usage of the street is something which clearly demarcates that how the design would look like. Although in the complete area we do see residential and hospitals and schools majorly, which are the major the usage. So I think that is something which give us the context. Now, in continuation to that, what we thought was that, because there are so many schools and we also need to do a neighborhood project, we should think of, how because of this Sadar Bazaar street, this whole area is going to be, triggering a redevelopment project. And also because the network will also be developed around this main street bazaar. So we also need to think of that how we are going to cater the schools or the residences around. So for that, we thought that we can have a project which we can, look into from schools perspective, and then safer access to the school for children. So that was opportunity which we saw. And also, if you see now in the next slide, we have these 4 cluster of schools which are private, semi-government, and also government. So we thought that it will be interesting to see this cluster together and from the neighborhood perspective, and see how we can create safer access to schools for children when such a large project is also coming. So piggybacking on the street design project or the complete pedestrianization project, and expanding that to the this concept and neighborhood level. So this was our idea for choosing this project. Then we thought that Open Street campaign, another initiative. I mean, Gurgaon was the city who initiated this since November 2013. So we're going to continue this. We already have this kind of map which we generated, where we have about 40 locations Rahagiri has been done over last 7 years. So I think we'll continue that, but the idea for the next immediate and to launch the street for people challenge, we are going to look into the street which we have recently created for cycle for the cycle challenge also. So for that, which is the Subhash Marg which we have created. So we are probably looking at that location for our launch of this event, and which will be probably on 1st November. And the idea is that it will continue every fortnight, and maybe then later expand it to multiple locations simultaneously, and connecting it to the our complete pedestrianization project also. So this is the idea for our Open Street program. Regarding the citizen support, I mean, if you see currently how the team is working, so we have 3 government authorities who are closely, working on this, led by MCG. We have Gurugram Metropolitan Development Authority, we have police, Gurugram Police, and then we have district administration. Apart from this, there are design teams which include Knowledge Partners, World Resources Institute, who are one of the people who are working on street for all work as well. And then we have mobility professionals, which are again a consultancy firm who will be looking into the mobility aspects and developing the network around it and accessibility to the street itself from the neighborhood areas. And then we have civil society organizations like Rahagiri Foundation, who will also be part of the design team, and channelizing discussion with stakeholders and looking into the Rahagiri Day and Open Street program. The academic institutions like Sushant University and the Bandhu Choturam University of Science and Technology will be kind of leading the design work, of course, I mean, with all the design team members, but, majorly largely working on the details and then further how we're going to proceed with the design. We also have road safety officers from Gurgaon who are, been part of various programs in the city to create awareness or to manage, road safety. And so I think they will also be a part of the team. So this is just the initial beginning where people are joined. And this is how the engagement started already, where we had stakeholder meetings with the market association, we had schools, we have residential welfare association representation, and then importantly we also had political representations where in this the left hand side meeting, if you see, we have the MLA, mayor, as well as the ward councillor are all sitting together to kind of talk about this concept and how we can take it forward positively. We also did a lot of on-ground stakeholder consultations to look into what are the possibilities at this stage, and hearing them out, that what are their concerns, and kind of really at this stage looking to what are the opportunities and what should be done and what should not be done. So those kind of things we are right now going on. So I think that would be it from my side, Venugopal. So any questions or anything, I'll be happy to take.
Sure. I'm sure, Priyanka, that there'll be a lot of questions, especially seeing how your team has brought together a lot of stakeholders, the list that you had shared. So we'll take the questions after we hear from other panelists as well. But it's nice to see how the flagship and neighborhood locations are also sort of intertwined and interconnected. And I think we'd like to hear more on that front as well. So great to hear the updates. With that, may I request Sneha Mohan to share her presentation on behalf of Aurangabad City.
Sure, Venugopal. Just share my screen.
Sure.
Yeah. Screen is visible? Right?
Yes, if you could make it full screen, it's good to go.
Yes.
I request all panelists to stick to the time duration of 7 minutes. Thank you, Priyanka, for wrapping up sooner. So we will have a small buzzer halfway through to give you a cue that you need to wrap up the presentation. What do you say?
Yes, thank you. So we'll start with the process that we have followed for our selection of our site. So the process that we have adopted is like that. So we have selected the potential streets in the city, which have high level of city impact, high footfall areas, and which would have a visible transformation to pedestrian-friendly cities once we complete the project. So the prospective sites that we had selected were around 6 sites, which had the potential to be one of the sites for our project. But when we presented these findings and we discussed these things with the stakeholders and with municipal officials, so few suggestions had come from their side, which was actually, we thought that it is actually very essential that we had that presentation with them so that we could get the inputs from their side. So the second visit was made to all these 6 prospective sites for the detailed mapping. And then we use the elimination process, wherein we narrowed down to 3 sites. So we have taken 2 flagship sites and 1 neighborhood site based on these parameters. So this site that we have selected, the 3 sites that we have selected on these parameters, of which the first is the interest of the stakeholders involved. So we had a discussion with all the stakeholders involved, and the interest what they had shown us. So on that basis, we have selected the site. Then the accessibility for public and connectivity with other transit modes like this cycle lane and the bus stops that is there in that sites. Then the economic activities that is existing, that is going on, that we have taken into consideration. Then the challenges with on-street parking that we'll have once the street is going to be completely pedestrianized or non-motorized. So the second, the next parameter is potential for substantial pedestrianization. Then the scope of integration with the sites that we have selected for cycles for change. So that also plays a big role in this, because pedestrianization cannot go standalone. So that we have chosen to collaborate with the Cycles for Change site. Then the mapping of availability of existing infrastructure was taken into consideration, like the existing parking facility, footpath, green cover, and the impact the transformation would make for successful implementation of city level scale up project. So these parameters were taken into consideration while selecting the 3 sites. So our first site that we have selected out of the 6 is the Kranti Chowk to Usmanpura Chowk. So it is a 600 meters length road, which is a sub-arterial road. So if you see these are the existing view of the site and the pain points that we have come up, that we have observed while doing the site visits. So we have the cycle lane going on through the from the same site, and we have selected this site. So the neighboring side, the neighboring streets to it is actually right now very active. So we were like, when we selected this, the stretch we have selected is little is not very active. So this is a challenge for us to make it active and bring people there. So we have just we thought that the parallel road, the road that is going besides it, will already has a lot of activity going on there. So that spillover of activities can happen on these stretch that we have selected, and it can bring people onto that site that we have selected. So these are the opportunities that we have seen for this site. So there is a lot of wide carriageway, which is right now underutilized. Like you can see in the issues and the pain point side. So right now these areas is taken away by the parking place and some hawking places. So with the proper management, we can have a good street like you can see in the opportunity side. And the second project that we have selected for the flagship project is the Paithan Gate to City Chowk Police Station. That stretch, it's a stretch of 0.8 kilometers. And this, if you like, I would like to tell you that Aurangabad is known for the tourism. It is the tourism capital of Maharashtra state. So it has got a lot of historical touch and culture to it. So, and the Paithan Gate itself is one of the prominent gate which is now intact and is in a good condition. So Aurangabad has 52 gates, and out of which Paithan Gate is still one of the prominent gates. So we'll select, and the street has got the name through this Paithan Gate. So it's called the Paithan Gate to City Chowk Gate. It already has many historical. So we have not taken the street, the complete street, but we are also looking at the internal roads or the internal roads that connects to this main street, as it has a very old and cultural touch to this streets. So right now there are many old facade and architectural buildings over here, like any other old city would have. So, but with the hustle bustle of the vehicles and the vehicle movement right now going on, and the parking problems in this, the old character of this, the previous character of this is lost, of this stretch is lost. So through this challenge, we are again trying to bring up the old essence and the heritage essence of the street back to the citizens. So the pain points that we have observed during our site visits is that the heritage, if you can see the photographs, there's the gate there, but it is all being, there are many eyesores, like the parking is being done there. And there are many other installations that has taken away the beauty of this thing, of the gate. So we have found many opportunities that can, actually bring back the essence and of the heritage site. The first neighborhood project, we have selected is the Connaught Street. So this Connaught Street is actually right now a very happy place to be. And there are many kind of numerous economic activities and going on this street. But like with the other streets, it also has a parking issue. There are a lot of movement of two-wheelers, two-wheeler, three, like four-wheeler vehicles on this road. So the peacefulness for the residents and the citizens, like shopping or the essence of that street is not right now available there. So as you can see, even I'm a like localite of this area, but even I was not known about the garden it has at the center. The structure is very beautiful. So it has, this area has a garden in between, and around the garden there goes the street. So right now the garden is completely closed. It's not being opened up for the citizens. So the main function of this garden is completely lost. So once we take up this street, we had plans to, we're having plans to open up the street for people, for open up the garden for people, so that we can connect all the streets, all the 4 streets together, and we can have open view of the garden to our public. So the plan that the process of planning that we have taken is first creating the public awareness through print media, social media. And then the second is bringing citizens on board by getting their active engagement. Then ensuring that public take over, rather than we taking over the challenge, public coming over and taking over the challenge by active engagement. And then to keep the momentum intact, we are releasing an activity calendar which will help people understand that what activity is, like what activity is organized by our team on which street, on which date. So the activity calendar is in making, so we are in process of making it. So first we had to start with the open street campaign. We have identified few locations where this can happen. Then we are connecting with the social media influencers of the city, RJs and event organizers who can spread this word across the citizens. And then we are connecting with municipal officials, the residential welfare associations, market associations, which are connected to these streets, and also with the students, which will play a very good role in making this project successful. Then we are getting hoardings ready because right now the picture is not clear among the citizens that what exactly this challenge is about, or what will they get back when after doing this project. So we'll have hoardings ready where they can see the before and proposed picture for to visualize the streets. How will that become? And then we are trying to tap all the sources of social media to promote the different stages, the progressive stages of the development. So this is a calendar, like this is for example, I've just put up the calendar. So we'll have such calendars which will be given to our citizens. And so these are the plans, future plans, like we'll be conducting these in next week. So we are going to conduct meetings with the RWAs, the neighborhood that we have selected. We are going to have these meetings with them, market association, and we have a planned flash mob. Then we are going to organize activities which is going to focus on the children, gender, fun and fitness, through which they can participate. Then there are going to be various workshops for public. For this, we are also coordinating with the team that we have in our city, so that both the challenges can be collaborated. Then we are trying to arrange a heritage walk in the old city. Through the site which we have selected for the flagship project, that is the Python Gate. For that site, we are going to arrange a heritage walk with the public. So to introduce our core team, we have a great team which is working on this project right now. So as a smart city team, we are urban planner, architect, civil engineer, and media analysts, which are involved in this project. So through the public awareness, we got engagement from many organizers. So Urban Research Collaborative is helping us out for all the organizing events. Then we have a Get Going team, which we have closely met during the Cycles for Change challenge. So they are involved in this project, and obviously the municipal corporation. So we have a nodal officer from their team who is going to help us with this complete project. Yeah, that's it. We are open for any questions.
Sure. Thank you, Sneha, for taking us through the journey so far. And it's great to see how the convergence between the two challenges that Mr. Kunal Kumar and Rahul Kapoor sir had spoken about at the launch as well is being reflected in the identification of the locations of the site, the stakeholders that you're working with. So it was great to see the updates, and we already have a few questions that have come up, know more about the initiatives from your city. But before that, I request our third panelist for the day, Ashish Kumar Pathak, the Chief Executive Officer from Jabalpur Smart City Limited, to kindly share the work of Jabalpur City. Over to you, sir.
So, am I audible to all?
Yes, sir, you are.
So, good afternoon, all. Jabalpur Smart City shortlisted 3 projects for Open Street Challenge, and Jabalpur considered participatory approach as a core value criteria, and we tried to move bottom up approach. So the shortlisted criteria followed by Jabalpur Smart City, actually in these all 3 places, due to lockdown, automatically people start using these street and much more for the walking. And the second thing, that alternate route is available for the to divert the traffic. Like if we are close these streets, we have alternate routes. So that's why we are focusing to develop these street as our street for people challenge. And the parking availability and high footfall, I think these are the things which we consider. And for citizen engagement, feedback session was there, and for this we use offline and online mode for this city feedback session, and we issue some Google form for this, and our open street campaign was also help us to collaborate with the citizens in this. And so, and we also move for the stakeholder consultation, for which those who are the daily commuter for this place, we talk to them. Residents Welfare Association, we try to onboard them also. So these were the two things which we consider for selecting the for shortlisting the location. So this is the cultural street which lies with our ABD area, and it's a 275-meter street. It's already developed by the Nagar Nigam, but it's not used as a happening place, and there are some issues. So we are going to develop this as a open street. And second one is just in front of the Vabartal Garden. So these 2 streets on the same locality, and that Vabartal Garden is a very happening place, and around 8,000 to 10,000 people visit daily to this garden. This is a very famous garden of Jabalpur. And Smart City also developed some things, some Sanskriti theaters and infrastructure development here. So that's why we are planning to develop these 2 streets, and a value addition in our earlier development. I think that will be the concept when we conceptualize this street for the street of the challenge. Next. So this is the cultural street, and we are going to just rejuvenate this street. And this is the second. These are some image of the Vabartal Garden Road, and this is the actual picture. And we are planning to close this street and make some interventions to make it more people friendly street. This is our third street which we shortlisted. This is a big ticket project of a smart city, Gulaua Tal Lake Rejuvenation Project. We already developed here that lake. We already took a lake rejuvenation project here and develop a pathway here. So by the length of this road is 400 meters. But by developing this as an open street, we will get around 900-meter place for the walking and for the people, because we are getting 500-meter pathway also in this same locality. So it's a 10-meter width road, and we are planning some garden development here in front of our already developed coffee house. And it's a link between the old city and new city. And it's a transit point for old city and new city. And our Cycle for Change project is going on in the new city. So it will be a convergence. Those who are using that track, they can also visit here. And we are planning some rental cycling dockyards out of the city, out of the street also. Next. These are the existing existing pictures of this Gulaua Tal Periphery Road, and right now it's not means a lot of work need to be done here, and so we are floating this. We are just moving for the road means design competition with these three streets, and then whatever suggestions will come from the competition, we will try to add on these in our and as for that we will process for our development. So and one more thing which I want to add, like we have a very dedicated team of the Tulip architects in Trans, and they are working on it. So and they are helping us to that to make a development plan and all the design competition. So next few days we are going to onboard our design competition, and whatever suggestion will come, we will try to incorporate it, and as for that we will go for the development. So what we feel that for developing such streets, sufficient parking space, essential public utilities, connectivity with the public transportation, accessibility to all, these are the learnings which we find. And in these all three projects, we have sufficient parking space. And for end-mind connectivity, we are going for a MOU with the urban transport company of the city. So, and another thing which we need to be considered for such street development is self-sustainability. And for this, we are planning to make a revenue generate model. So in future also, like in our cultural street, because it was not a self-sustainable street. So right now it is not in a very good condition. So for that self-sustainability, we are going to generate some revenue model like e-Gumti in this place, because it when it convert in a happening place and 8 to 10,000 people are coming in Bhabartal garden, definitely we will get some revenue by e-Gumti, and it will be good for a sense of ownership will also come, and I think it will be more sustainable. Challenges is urban informality is a big challenge in such place, as lots of people are when we are going to create some new infrastructure, definitely encroachment will be a problem in this thing, and to engage with urban informality, more systematically approach will be required. That's why we are trying to make some e-Gumti and to accommodate those who are already doing their business or street vendor on the same place. Next. These are the some initiatives which Jabalpur Smart City took in for this challenge. For citizen engagement, we have a very we conduct a very active social media campaigning through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Google feedback form was, we got some very good response from Google feedback form also, and our team is working on it, and accordingly we will process, we will go way forward. And the base criteria was, as I told earlier also, in these all three shortlisted projects is visibility, easily accessible, alternate traffic route availability, and sufficient street lamp and width. So I think that we already discussed earlier. And these are some pics and a screenshot of our social media campaign. Next. Next. So we try to bring all the stakeholders and information through all traffic police and through newspapers. So the people must be aware about what our pilot project is going on. So we try to take on board all the institutions in this. These are some news and images of the activities which we conducted for our street challenge project. These are the activities pictures of the open street, and we use that signage very properly, so people get aware and sensitized about all these things, because it's really very tough initially to divert the traffic, or a sense of habit is there now, so it's very tough. So we use that signage very properly and focus on the signage and other things. So actually this is the team and diversity of the team member which is working for this campaign. We have our smart city officials, municipal officials. We have a very dedicated architectural intern team of Tulip, through Tulip. Three architect intern are working with us regularly, and we try to onboard traffic police, NGOs, dance and music group, cycle group, volunteers, and a comprehensive plan. So it make more easier for us to deliver the result. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for taking us through the journey so far for Jabalpur. It was very heartening to hear how the Open Streets campaign is going extremely well in the city, and how the feedback form for the citizens to share insights of the locations itself has been rolling out quite well. I request all the panelists, if you don't mind, to kindly turn on your video for a quick panel discussion. I would also like to invite Shreya Gadapalli, the South Asia Program Lead for ITDP, to join us for the panel discussion.
Thanks, Venu. I'm there around. So,
Shreya, would you like to share some initial thoughts on the presentation so far? Or?
Sure. So it's fantastic to see the kind of progress that cities are already making, and the excitement that cities have in creating streets for people. So thank you, folks from Jabalpur, from Aurangabad, and Gurugram, for showing us what your plans are. And I think that other cities are also equally excited now to identify where they would do their pilots. I see there are a bunch of questions also which have been posted. For example, streets with less friction is more implementable, and which one is more preferable, a high footfall area or a low friction area? And I'd say that yes, there is going to be friction, especially in high footfall areas. But the goal of this challenge is to make high footfall areas walking friendly. And so the question is, how do we start dealing with various elements of friction and start prioritizing walking and start prioritizing public spaces for people, rather than let that friction remain and be a pain for everyone? So a key point here would be, how do we manage parking, and to a certain extent also how do we manage vending, which can be a key issue. So as we saw pictures from whether it be Gurugram or Aurangabad or Jabalpur, these are, I'm very glad that cities are willing to test difficult but potentially very, potentially sites which can create dramatic transformation in their city centers. And I look forward to seeing how these transformations happen. And in days to come, we will definitely support cities in identifying how to address these friction points. So it's not as if we are letting you just deal with it on your own. We'd be very happy to provide you various tools in how to capture the existing information, but also dealing with these various pain points, these friction points.
Thank you, Shreya, for sharing those thoughts. We have a few questions to take here. The first one is directed to you, Priyanka, for Gurugram in particular. It's regarding the stakeholder collaboration with the various organizations that you mentioned that you're collaborating with, and OpenStreet initiatives like Rahagiri that is there. So could you touch upon a little more on how this collaboration is being facilitated and share some of the learnings that has happened through the process, how it's been for the city so far?
I think it was very interesting because in Gurugram already there were so many groups who are working in this kind of scenario where they want to work for creating streets which are for everybody, for complete street and kind of sustainable mobility solutions. And they were closely working with the corporation beforehand, be it the institutions like Sushant and Decrest or WRI and Rahagiri Foundation. So over the time they have kind of been associated with certain projects, and that's how when corporation initiated this or wanted to do such project, they kind of invited everyone from people, these kind of groups who were involved with various projects in the city, be it an engagement program or for example, Sushant was doing their studio project on Sadar Bazaar, so they became important factor that because they already had some studies done in the background. So I think that's how we all kind of collated the information to kind of come together. And apart from that, how other organizations or kind of other stakeholders we are approaching. For example, I think I saw some question where talked about how the political representatives are part of this discussion. So it was very important because initially, especially after Chandni Chowk, there is so much conversation about how complete streets are turning out in pedestrianization. So there's a positive, in fact, association of everybody, and that is as a stakeholder and not as the political representatives. They were part of this discussion that how the project should be taken care of, and I think that was very important initial discussion because we knew that everybody's on board. And yeah.
Thanks, Priyanka, for sharing those insights and experience. The next question is probably directed to all of you, but then probably the Jabalpur team could take it. It is more on the Open Streets campaign and how Jabalpur has been sharing updates of Open Streets events happening across the city, insights from the forum, and it's very heartening to see. So are there any thoughts or strategies set in place already on how to sustain this over time? Through an event management company, or are there any thoughts on that front already that the city has?
Hi Venu, this is Sambhav from Jabalpur. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, Sambhav, you are.
Yeah, regarding Open Street campaign, we have already informed that it is a recurring event, and what we are doing is we are launching various kind of initiatives such as street photography campaign or linking it with other events also, which we are undergoing for Cycle for Change and other things. And what we do is we actually, while launching an Open Street campaign, we conduct a parallel feedback session also in that particular campaign. Like we go on asking with the daily commuters of that particular location, like which particular street they would be seeing as a open street, or they view it as a open street, or they realize that if that particular street could be closed during morning hours for some particular time, which street they would like to see as. So based on that only we actually choose this particular open street. And we have associated ourselves during our journey for Cycle for Change and Street for People with so many civil society organizations, volunteers, and other groups that now I don't think we need a separate event management company for that, and without even spending much also we are associating and connecting with people on such a larger scale. So this is how we are doing this such kind of thing. Yeah.
That's great to know, and I think reaching the Support Your City approach has been working, collaborating with other CSOs and stakeholders. It's great to know. We have one final question for Sneha. From when you started the presentation, you mentioned how there were I think 6 sites in total that were identified, but you had taken those ideas to the stakeholders on the ground and how the insights help in refining the thought process and in selection. So for a city who is just starting right now on identifying the location, would there be any quick learnings that you would like to share on what they need to keep in mind while selecting these locations?
Sure. So the learnings that we we got from selecting site is that first is a level of pain points that you have to first see how much sooner, like if there are any pain points in that particular site, so how sooner that can be resolved, or how many iterations would it require to come to a finalization. So that thing needs to be decided for taking up the, then the function of the road should be taken into consideration. Like we have taken up the slower roads if there are kinds of roads. So the areas which we have, the streets which we have eliminated is like the stretches which included more of cross sections or fast moving vehicles. So that kind of roads we have eliminated. Rather than we have kept a more of a slow moving streets. Then while doing the visible transformation, once you select the site, so it should have a visible transformation scene, so that people can get to know what kind of initiative that the team is taking, and it will actually help us to do the city level scale up project. So that kind of sites should be selected first.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Sneha, for sharing your thoughts. In the interest of time, I think we'll have to wrap up the panel discussion for now. That was a very informative session, and we'd like to thank all the city officials and team members from Aurangabad, Gurugram, and Jabalpur for sharing your experiences and learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, we move to the next segment of our workshop. We have Bala Nagendran, Research Associate at ITDP India, who will take us through the process of rolling out the design competition. Bala is actively involved in Complete Streets projects across the cities of Tamil Nadu. With a keen interest in research, he's also involved in policy and planning research for transforming urban mobility to nurture early childhood development in Pune, Maharashtra. With that, over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Venu. Am I audible?
Yes, Bala.
I share my screen. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to take you all through this presentation on rolling out the design competition. To begin with, we'd like to give a overall understanding on the challenge roadmap again. As Venu had highlighted in the previous session, the first workshop was focusing on the process for identifying pilot locations. And we are here in step B now towards understanding what would be the process for hosting the design competition. So this step in itself has two components in it. One, rolling out the design competition, and two, evaluation of the design submission and finalizing the winners. This workshop in specific and this presentation will focus only on the first component towards rolling out the design competition. Before we get into the stepwise process on rolling out the design competition, let's have an overview on why a design competition is important for the cities and also for the participants. So why roll out a design competition? Every city who have registered for the Streets for People challenge is required to roll out their own design competition for the challenge. The objectives here are clearly that to crowdsource innovative design ideas for multiple sites and test pilot walking friendly initiatives across the cities. This is also something that will help the cities to involve the local practitioners and citizens in designing their city. Having said that, why would the participants share their designs? What would they be getting through this process? So the professionals and students from architecture, planning, and other relevant fields will join hands in this process to be a part of the COVID-19 green recovery initiatives in their cities. And also this gives them an opportunity to collaborate with the city officials and other stakeholders. And also the key highlight here is the winning entries are going to be implemented on ground in such a short span. Hence, in an overall sense, it's a value for both the cities and also for the participants. Now, moving on to the step-by-step process for rolling out the design competition. So this process in itself has 4 steps, starting from updating the brief and sharing with us, And step 2 is spreading the word to maximize the participation for the competition. Step 3 would be to organize walking audits with the participants to understand the site very well before they get onto the designing board. And step 4 is finally the identification of the best designs for implementation. Let's see one by one in detail on what the cities are expected to do at each of these steps and how it will all come together as a whole. So step 1 would be to update the brief template and share with us. So the design competition brief template will be shared with the cities soon after this workshop, and the cities are expected to update some of the key editable sections in the template, which will prominently include the information on the pilot locations, the details on the award for the participants, and finally some city specific information regarding the timelines, submission requirements, etc. Let's see all of them also in little more detail. So the first one is the update on pilot location. So in the template, the cities are expected to include a map which clearly demarcates the pilot location and also gives a baseline information for the participants on the context and the background of the overall the site that has been selected. And finally, we also encourage the cities to include a downloadable link where the participants can find the additional information, based drawings and images for the particular site. And going ahead would be the updates on the awards. So cities are free to reward winning participants as they wish. Cities must but ensure that at least one winner is acknowledged for all the sites included in the brief. And 2, the winning entry has to be executed on the ground. Other than these, the cities have their free hand in including how many ever winning entries as part of this competition. And finally is the updates on the city specific details. Here we will be talking about three components of information. One, the first one is the city section where the city have to update their city name and also the overall vision, the context of the city and the background information. And 2, the city has to provide in the competition brief the contact details for submission and also for asking queries. So this is really critical as the participants would be reaching out to you in terms of any queries and also for making their submissions. And finally, the city also have to update the timeline chart based on the day they are going to roll out the competition. So we'll be seeing the timeline chart further in more detail in the coming up slides. So this largely covers the step 1 of the process. And step 2 is about spreading the word to maximize the participation. So once you update the competition brief and you are expected to send the brief to the Streets for People Challenge team, we will be uploading the same to the challenge website, from where the participants can access it. So once you do this process, you also expected to spread the word to maximize the participation. We encourage you to use both offline as well as online tools to communicate and enhance your outreach about the design competition. In addition, cities can also do targeted outreach by reaching out to institutions, universities, IAAs and other professional organizations or units who will be able to support in this process. We will also be sharing a template for social media outreach and for the print media outreach. As the cities are doing this process and spreading the word to maximize participation, as I mentioned, the participants would be doing their registration on the Streets for People Challenge website. We will soon be adding a tab to the website for the competition itself, and the participants are free to register there, and the consolidated list will be shared with the cities post that. So once the cities have the participants list and also the participants have registered for their preferred sites or preferred cities, the cities in specific are expected to organize site walking audits with participants. So this is really critical here, as the site walking audits with the participants is going to help the cities and also the participants to understand and explain the site context. They would identify the pain points and also the opportunities through this process. And also this will give them an opportunity to organize discussions with stakeholders and the local community there. In the later stage of the next week or later further that, post this workshop, we would be sharing a walking audit template as well for the cities to use. And finally, as step 4, once the walking audit is done and the participants and the cities have understood their requirements, they will make their submissions through the contact details given in the brief. And following that, the cities are expected to organize an expert jury panel who would be shortlisting the entries based on the requirements set in the brief, the originality of the design, and also the feasibility to implement. As we always have mentioned, implementation is the key here, and hence that would be the major evaluation criteria. And finally, once we have the set of shortlisted entries, the final process on selection of the winners would be a community-driven exercise. The cities have to facilitate a community jury, which will happen either through online or offline mode, and the final winners would be selected through that. We will be discussing further on the evaluation criteria and also the processes that is involved in this jury, expert jury, and also the community jury steps in the next workshop. So to summarize all these steps we have seen now, so starting with updating the brief and sharing with us, the cities are then expected to spread the word for maximum participation, then organize the walking audits with participants, and finally identify the best design for testing in your pilots. So now that we have known the stepwise process for hosting or rolling out the design competition, here are the quick guidelines that is going to help you in this process. So who can participate in this competition? As I already mentioned, it's open for all professionals and students in the fields of architecture, urban design, planning, and other relevant fields. But the only condition here is at least one team member should be a local resident. This is to ensure they are aware of the local context, and also they would be able to participate in the walking audit and also coordinate with the city officials, etc. in the later stages. And then we highly recommend multidisciplinary collaboration, and there is no restriction on the number of members per team. So the broad rules for the submission itself is the participants are free to register for more than one cities, and even if they are registering for particular site, they are free to submit more than one entries. So there is no restriction on number of entries and also the number of cities that the participants can be involved in. Other detailed requirements will be shared in the competition brief template. And finally, to see the milestones, so the three key milestones in this process. One is to the competition rollout. We expect that to happen in the November itself by all the cities, and then the submission of the design entries, and finally the announcement of the winning entries. The whole process will be taken care over like multiple activities, starting from updating the brief, outreach and identification of jury, walking audit, shortlisting entries, and community jury. The whole process should be done in an approximate of 8 weeks is what we aim for. Once the competition winners have been announced, the winning team will work with the city's core team for Streets for People Challenge towards making this a reality in the testing process and also the monitoring and evaluation process. So this broadly sums up the whole idea of why and how and what would be the instances under the city-led design competition. So as I mentioned, the next workshop will focus further on the evaluation of the design submissions and setting up the jury process. Yeah. So taking a step up from here, as the cities are rolling out this design competition, we encourage all of you to continue to embrace the citizen-led approach and build the momentum for Streets for People Challenge. As a step one towards that, cities are expected to roll out a perception survey. We'll be sharing a survey template in multiple languages shortly, and we expect this survey is going to help the cities to understand the barriers for walking on the street by reaching out to various user groups, and also to build a case for the Streets for People change itself that we are all aiming to build. And as most of the cities have already done for the Cycles for Change challenge, here as well, we encourage you to use both online and offline tools to reach out to diverse user groups, which may include social media channels, your emails, WhatsApp groups, and printing in newspaper and putting up posters and pamphlets, etc. As a step two, as we discussed in the early part of this session itself, a lot of you have already started Open Streets campaign, and we take this opportunity to nudge the other cities as well who have not tried out the Open Streets campaign to identify the locations for the campaign, inform your citizens, launch the campaign, and share the happiness with us as well. For the cities who have already started, as already highlighted by Venu and Shreya, please ensure you make it as a recurring event and you scale it up across the city. Thank you. Over to you, Venu.
Thank you, Bala, for that presentation. We have a few questions that have come up even during the registration process itself, and a few that have come up now. I invite Shreya to join us for the Q&A session as well.
Sure, I'm there around.
So there is a question that asks on if the city already has a concept plan for the site, is it fine if the city incorporates those ideas in the design brief, or should they leave it open for the designers? Shreya, would you like to take that?
Sure. So if the city already has a plan, what we would suggest is try to see if you can, rather than trying to put preconceived notions in the minds of designers, consider that maybe the designers could come up with interesting solutions that you may not have thought about earlier, and see after they come up with those designs if your designs and their designs could be combined in some fashion to have the best of both worlds. So, do consider how the design competition is not just about getting design ideas, but it's also a way of building local support. It's a way of engaging local citizens to form citizen juries, to review various design ideas, give them a menu of ideas so that then they can pick and choose what ideas could be tested.
Thanks, Shreya, for the clarification. On similar lines about the citizen support, there's a question that what is the need for having a local citizen member as part of the team? Is a question that has been raised. So in Bala's presentation, it was mentioned how it's a prerequisite that a team member has to be from a local citizen. Would you like to comment on that?
You mean a member of the design team, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Who are applying. So the primary goal is that you should consider having somebody who understands the city and has a sense of ownership for the city. So if you have a design team which doesn't have anybody who's local and who doesn't know about the city, they may not know the context as well as somebody who actually lives in the city and could get better insights on how the city functions or that part of the city functions. That's the reason why we're suggesting that you have at least one designer from the city in every design team.
Sure. Shreya, there is a question that's come up regarding the evaluation. So there's an anonymous question that asks, can you elaborate on what a community jury would look like? Would there be an expert jury as well to accompany it, or?
Sure. So that's a very good question. And, we've also discussed this idea with a few other experts as well. And we feel that you should have a combination of experts as well as local citizens who are part of the jury, so that the experts could also inform what's possible. They can also become internal champions, if you will, in some senses, preferably experts from the city who also understand the city. And along with local citizens, representatives, that would be a good combination to have in the jury. So not only citizens, but not only experts also. It should be a combination, or we suggest that it should be a combination of both citizens and experts.
Sure. One last question in this section. It's asking to share some insights on what the walking audit could look like. The cities have already done some preliminary quick visits on the ground to understand what their difficulties are. So what more will this walking audit share insights for the participants, and what is the city expected to do for that?
Sure. Very good question. Again, the walking audit is essentially a way, it's great that some of the cities have already gone out and they've done a recce to find out what the context is. The walking audit is a step further to make it both qualitatively and quantitatively more robust. This is a way by which the designers would capture information about a variety of things, not just about existing traffic movements, but also existing pedestrian movements, the kinds of activities that are happening there, the kinds of parking that might be happening in that whole area, because parking certainly has come up as a key issue both the challenges in Cycles for Change as well as in Streets for People, about vending activity also, and how you could reform all of these as part of the eventual solution. So the better you know the context, the better your design solution could be. And that's the main reason why we are suggesting that you consider a walking audit. And we'd give you a checklist of what all to capture and how you could use the information that you capture to start preparing the designs. And when I say you, it's both the city, but also the designers who would work with the city.
Sure. Thank you, Shreya, for taking those questions. I think it's answered all the concerns raised so far. Are there any other comments from your side that you would like to share before we wrap up the session for the day?
So I'd say great progress by the cities which have already started identifying their locations. They've already gone on site and they've understood the context. Many of the cities already have local citizen champions who are collaborating with them, which is again a great sign, a very high chance of success when you have that kind of active citizen support. One of the heartening things that I heard today, especially from Jabalpur, was that they no longer need external event managers and they actually feel very competent to engage with citizens and organize events, because these are not heavy lifts anymore. And I'm glad some of the templates that we've provided might have been useful for you. So keep telling us what you might find useful, and we will try our best to provide you all the support that we can in terms of templates, processes that can make your job easy and for you to succeed.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Bala. I request Angi to share the screen right now to just summarize on what are the next steps between now and the next workshop for the cities, which, like you see on the screen right now, it's to update the design brief, the template of which that we'll be sharing with you all soon. And to share it with us, we will upload that on our Streets for People Challenge website, and it's to roll out the design competition. The perception survey template will also be shared with your team to roll out the perception survey, to conduct the walking audit using the template that's shared with the registered participants. If you've already planned for an open streets campaign, to go ahead to launch it and to plan on how to make it recurring and to spread it. Or if you haven't launched one yet, to strategize and to launch one. And like Rahul Kapoor rightly mentioned, the weekly updates are very important to understand the progress across the cities and to understand what kind of guidance that we can curate for all of you. So kindly share in your weekly updates. And from our side, as always, we'll be sharing the collaterals from the session, the presentation and video. A few templates that was mentioned during the session, the competition brief, the perception survey template, the checklist for walking audit. These templates will be shared with all of you, along with collaterals for social media outreach, how to inform interested students and professionals that this design competition is going to be launched, and also the weekly update forms between now and the next workshop. So before we close for the day, I would like to remind you all about the Mobilize International Virtual Conference that is happening next week. Mobilize is ITDP's annual Sustainable Transport Summit, which brings together urban transport and development practitioners alongside world-class researchers to celebrate best practices and to accelerate the implementation of sustainable transportation projects. The city of Pune will be on spotlight for their won the Sustainable Transportation Award. We will have a few sessions that focus specifically on India, and a session that focuses on the national level challenges, which are the India Cycles for Change and the Streets for People Challenge. And we'll have a few cities as well participating in that session as a panelist. We will be resharing the registration details for Mobilize through mail as well as the Telegram and WhatsApp channels. And we urge all of you not to miss out on this big learning opportunity. So a reminder that it's next week, and do sign up for it right away. With that, we have come to the end of the second online workshop of